Hi, folks. Welcome to, God, what day of the week's this? Saturday.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, must be.
I'll need to check.
Welcome to the iWrite Radio podcast, Videocast. We've got Charlie, who's really Phil Attridge, Stuart Lockhead with us today.
Hello there.
Jimmy's busy either celebrating or thinking about suicide, depending on the result.
Even if they lose, they're so far ahead in points anyway.
Who they playing?
Celtic Rangers today.
Oh, right. Of course, it's a New Year thing, isn't it? Football.
Yeah, it's a tradition.
Well, we've kind of decided we're going to go with Richard Murphy as our kind of base. Richard Murphy has a blog called what is it? Tax
Research.
Tax Research UK.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a bit of a fan of Scottish independence. Fans maybe too strong. He thinks there's a good case for it. Shall we put it that way?
He's also a very useful reference on a daily basis to the nonsense of the economy that this government keeps spewing about, isn't he? I mean, if you've got nothing to do with Scotland in your heart or head, he's worth going to every day.
Well, he's done a kind of prediction for next year.
He's a brave man, isn't he?
Which covers 10 different points and is an opportunity. We'll go through the list and it's an opportunity for us to comment on them. We'll start with number one, which is
COVID.
The mix of COVID and Brexit. He suggests will make an economic recovery next year very, very difficult.
I think he's right, you know. I mean, this is a position that we may not agree on, of course, but I can see us in a year's time having restrictions. I mean, the latest news about the latest headline this morning was apparently, although the scientists have said you can't do it, the officials are saying that we can mix and match the vaccine. So you might get your first jab with one vaccine and your second one with another. That sounds lunatic to me.
Well, Philippa Whitford has just tweeted a report. I think it's more concerned. I haven't read it, to be honest. But from what she's saying in her tweet, she seems to be open to the idea of extending the time between vaccines.
I thought these vaccines were passed on the scientific evidence for the tests that were done. Were tests done of going from 3 weeks to 12 weeks for the first vaccine?
No, but that's kind of any of these companies who are in it for profit going to want you to extend the time between them. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. And I do sort of agree with you, Stuart, that it seems a very silly chance to take.
I won't take it. I'm sticking to what the original scientists has been passed.
If you're allowed to.
If you give all these people this single injection, Boris can stand there ruffling his hair saying how many people have been vaccinated. That's all it's all about. You know, it's consistent. It's got nothing to do with reality.
Well, if it happens to be true, it's a good idea. If it isn't true, it's a very bad idea. But at the moment, I haven't seen anything to convince me one way or the other.
No.
You know, so if it works, great. Twice as many people vaccinated.
But if you're
go on, Phil.
Yeah, but if you're looking at what he says as well, you've got the vaccine, but then you're going to have the people that aren't taking the vaccine, the anti-vaxxers, and as it's going to get worse, I mean, it's common sense. It's a flu. January, February. It's the highest number of regular flu deaths at any time. This is going to be exacerbated, and it's the NHS, as it is now. Essex, and I think it's Buckinghamshire are just announced as emergency areas, so they'll get even more. The whole place is collapsing.
Well, the other introduction, I mean, it covers the COVID and the NHS and the economy. in his introductory preamble, before he actually runs through his specific 10 points. It's interesting that he talks about NHS failure. The one article that we could have talked about today, which we only touched on a couple of days ago, was the leader from the Daily Telegraph claiming how they were claiming that it was all the reason that everything's a mess is because of the officials. It's nothing to do with this government at all. It's the civil servants and the people. I mean, blame everybody else but themselves.
That's just typical, though, isn't it? It's quite obvious what it is. It's all the grabbers that have come in, they've removed huge amounts of money from the NHS just with PPI. You know, here, 50 million a year for that shed in South Edinburgh is what it costs the health board. That's going to be 1.5 billion, which is just going into coffers for a building costing 200 million. I mean, that's why the NHS, it's been drained with parasites. And you can blame the Tories, but actually, I remember Postman Pat, otherwise known as Alan Johnson, standing there going, how great these polyclinics and that were, handing them over to American companies, you know, to run and stuff like that. That's why it's a failure, not just to the Tories, because, I mean, they just exacerbated it because the wedge was put in under New Labour. Simple as that, I think.
Well, to go back to the original point, my decision on this vaccine with a 12-week gap, etc., I wouldn't be confident in yay or naying for it. The wife's had her first vaccination,
right,
and she's not had anything to say she's not getting the second one yet.
And that will be a 3 weeks gap.
Well, she got it on Christmas Eve, so
this is a week already, so it'll be another 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, it's not quite a week, is it?
There was a camera shot on CNN this morning, and because they've just started the vaccinations in America, and it was a car driving down a road, and there were just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cars all queued for to get the vaccine. So I don't know exactly how the system was working there. I mean, hundreds of them. Somebody was driving along, like we've seen film shots like that of lorries in Kent. Same idea, but these are cars, people in them waiting to get vaccinated.
But see what you're saying about the vaccination. Scotland seems to be a wee bit of ahead when it comes to NHS staff. Now, Jill's just had her injection. My daughter's partner, Jamie's just had his injection. He's a nurse. I was talking to my sister-in-law, ex-sister-in-law, I think she works in central Middlesex. No sign of any vaccination for them. So we appear to be at least...
Totally.
A bit more methodical, a bit sensible. That's the word.
I suppose the next question to be asked is, if Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland choose to stick to the 3-week break between vaccinations, how will that affect supply? Will basically Westminster decisions affect the choices we can make in the devolved administrations?
Norrie, I'm amazed that you think this was a serious possibility, that they were going to take a medical procedure that's already been passed as 3 weeks and extend it to 12, that you're even going to consider the outcome.
Stuart, you don't have to be amazed, mate. The letters have already gone out in England to people who have been vaccinated with the first vaccination, telling them to cancel their next appointment.
Oh, I didn't realise. I'm not spending all my time watching English TV at the moment.
Well, they've already gone out.
Wow.
If you want to hear what's happening really down in the southeast, that LBC, I think channel BBC 5 Live or something, you get a lot of stuff on that. You've been getting a lot of Scottish stuff on it as well, because they had, I think I told you the last time, they had Tommy Shepherd on, and and the interviewers are quite good. They actually sound like journalists.
Well, we won't be hearing of them in the BBC. Okay, that aside,
that's the background, eh?
Murphy now moves on to the politics.
Well, look, it was one other thing before we move on in the preamble was about the economy. He suggests that there is a suggestion that the economy might recover, and there might be a 5% growth. And he suggests, well, that's just, he doesn't make that assumption either, does he?
Well, he basically doesn't think there's going to be a recovery next year, either from the virus or of the economy.
You know, he uses a term, animal instincts. Now, I'm not sure if I agree with him on that. I mean, it seems to me that I've got more money in my bank than I expected because I've not been anywhere, and I suspect there's an awful lot of people who haven't lost their jobs who are in my place. But the way Richard Murphy puts it, he thinks people will be really worried about spending any money they've got, and there won't be a sudden, when all the restrictions are lifted, we won't all rush out on foreign holidays, cruises, and spending all our money.
Yeah, but the three of us here are sitting on pensions. You don't get made redundant from pensions.
Not yet.
So
They'll try.
He's refusing. Sorry, he's referring to people who are scared of losing their jobs. You don't go out and spend money when you think you might not have a job in a month.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think I'll come down on that side, but he's right.
See what Norrie said about on pensions, right? And, we're retired. But if you look at the terminology now, when they're talking about it, pensions are something you've paid into, you've actually bought, whether it's your state or your occupation, and they're now referred to as benefits, welfare.
Don't get me started on that one.
There are some people out there who have not worked, and are still entitled to a pension, and quite right too.
Yeah,
if you paid, well, let's be honest. When I left school and went to work, I started paying into something called national insurance. Yeah. I also paid tax. National insurance was regarded as you putting your portion of your income into your pension for future benefits, and for a pension when you got old. What happened to that theory?
Yeah. Well, you remember as well, you had CERT, which was even more on your old age pension. So it would have been like your standard old age pension, your state. But Barbara Castle brought it in. Norrie's probably too young to remember. You know what I mean?
No, I had CERT.
I think you're just complicating it, Phil. CERT was simply topping up.
Yeah, exactly.
An already basic system where anybody who worked, you put some of your money you didn't get to choose into your pension.
But the more money you earn, the more you put in. So
that's obvious if it's a percentage.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Can we move from pensions to Mr. Murphy's second point, or we're going to be here early tomorrow morning?
Cronyism.
I'll read this out.
Yes.
Second, the risk of cronyism will remain high, but the seeds of dissent will grow the longer it remains apparent. If it breaks out of the PPE sector, I am not sure that the anger will be contained.
Well, I'm feeling. I'm angry with Richard Murphy. All he calls it is cronyism. At the very least, it's corruption, and if not, it's gangsterism.
And he says the risk of. What do you mean the risk of? It's actually happening. Yeah, and you're right. It's rampant corruption. That's what you get. Read Naomi Klein, shock doctrine. That's it. They're all in there, snouts in a trough, disaster capitalism. What else do you expect? Tories.
So, right. Okay. You all think he hasn't gone far enough. Is he right?
Well, he's right. Yeah.
Will the anger break out?
No, that's another question. That's a different question.
They'll find someone else to blame.
Well, he kind of, as in his conclusion, he covers that again. He expands a bit on that. Can
we wait for the conclusion until we get concluded?
Yeah, no, I think we can, because he adds in other factors, which I'm not quite sure I'm certainly not going to agree with some of the assumptions. Will people rise up is the big question, you could say. I don't know.
And I'm not sure. I think it's wishful thinking.
Yeah, I agree
on his
with you there.
part. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that by the time everybody's got through COVID, Those unfortunate enough to have lost their jobs will be spending all their time looking for work. There could be a small percentage of people who'll take to the streets, but I can't see it.
You see, the worry, as soon as you make that assumption that Richard Murphy's made there, you've also got to take into account the possibility that the uprising won't be from the left. It'll be it'll be a right-wing fascist type uprising.
Yeah. And
I don't know if you watched the movie. Was it Tea with Mussolini? I caught a little bit. It's a movie. All these you might have seen it first time it came around. It's about all these English ladies that were settled and living in Florence in Italy at the time of Mussolini, and what happens when Italy goes to war with Britain. I didn't watch it in detail, but it just struck me there now that watching there are all these expats English in a sort of posh restaurant, and that gets attacked by all the street people. This demonstration, they smash all the windows and people get injured, and the English ladies assume it's the left-wing rioters. It turns out it's the fascists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. I just can't see people taking to the barricades.
No, but I can see Stuart's point, and the people to blame. I mean, this is now a pretty multicultural country. Well, if you take the whole UK, that's who they're going to start blaming. And you're right, it'll be from the right wing.
They'll start attacking
they've got the government.
Indian shops. They'll start Chinese shops.
Why do you take to the streets when you've got the government?
Yeah, but they don't think that way. They've been told to hate the government.
Yeah, but they've not got. There's nobody else on the horizon.
That's why they
could take power for the right wing.
Yeah, but
apart from the Tories,
you're assuming they've actually thought it through. The voters apparently believed what Boris told them. The voters in America believe what Trump told them. They're not thinking as far as you're assuming, Norrie.
Yeah, the possibility in America is because Trump's gone. Why would who are they going to take to the streets? Who do they want to replace Boris?
They're going to attack the Chinese restaurants, the Indian shops.
Oh, right, I see. It's going to be a racist uprising.
Yeah. Yes.
Because they'll be to blame, and they'll have jobs, and they're not English, and they're not white, and all this type of thing, That's, well, it's the British way, isn't it?
I don't want to be proved wrong, but I don't think that will happen either.
Well,
it won't happen over the whole country, but it definitely happen in certain parts where it happens.
Could you pay attention to the discussion? Hey, that's you, Charlie, I'm talking to.
I was just reading the last bit, but my eyeballs were going.
His third point is that Freeports will become an issue in the English local government elections this year. He also says they'll prove to be a damp squid. I don't think there's any doubt that they were always going to be a damp squid, because if they were that good an idea, they could have introduced them while in the EU. There was nothing to stop the introduction of them.
Yeah, but the point is that until that's explained to them by the tabloid media, Joe Public won't know that. He'll think it's, that's a good idea.
Joe Public have no idea about Freeports anyway.
It's easy to sell in the headline of a tabloid newspaper. Freeports, investment, no tax. We'll get foreign investment, and you'll get a job. All right.
And you won't be getting minimum wage or anything.
They must be fools then.
Yeah,
well, I don't want to call English voters fools, but that's up to you're putting words in my mouth.
His fourth prediction: the change in the relationship in Northern Ireland will be rapid. There's a real risk of stress as unionists realise how badly they will think they've been treated by the UK. Ireland will continue careful diplomacy backed by the EU. So he thinks there's going to be a rapid, and he's talking about business here, changeover from dealing with the UK to their supply lines dealing with the south of Ireland.
I think you could be right there. I watched a couple of foreign TV channels this morning. in Ireland, in the Republic, in the south, they've got a port called Rosslare, which, and they're investing they're currently investing 100 million euros there to improve the services. The services direct from Rosslare to, this is south of Ireland, to the continental Europe are going from 5 a week to 15 a week before the end of January. What it's looking like is that Northern Ireland-based truckers, hauliers, could well want to avoid going through England because of the paperwork involved. And they might just go straight, because they'll just go straight to Rosslare and land straight in Cherbourg or Dunkirk.
Seems totally reasonable. And I would imagine, depending on how the crossing from Scotland to Ireland works out, that might be as quick a route for Scottish hauliers if there's big delays in Dover.
Well, especially, yeah, if you move to the possibility, this was just assuming that you'd have too many regulations to handle taking your truck through England, in and out of the EU, basically. But if you throw in the possibility of jams, traffic jams and lorry jams in Kent and in northern France, then yes, that's another issue.
That I do think that the biggest risk of trouble is Northern Ireland from the Unionists, rather than mainland Britain.
I've not seen any sense of them getting particularly upset. They knew this was coming. They're not stupid. They managed to get a lot of money out of the Tories before this arrived.
I think the Unionist elite will be pretty pissed off, because the move closer to the south, even without having to move away from the UK, if you like, but just the practicalities of going through the south and dealing with the south will be so much easier than dealing with the UK. Anyway, because of the paperwork.
The Republic's got a couple of aces as well. Apart from the Republic is now on the Security Council, and we have a rather pro-Irish president coming along in a couple of weeks.
In America, you mean, not the Irish president?
Oh, no. Yeah, Biden, you know. I mean, there's nothing more Irish than an American Irishman, you know. So, yeah, I think that might make a difference. And there is changes, because they're going to lose money, a lot of people. I mean, the average wage in Northern Ireland is about 23,000 euros a year. It's 33 in the UK. That's 39 in the Republic, funny enough. So, you know, we bet cash, investment going into Ireland, not into England from Europe, might start to look rosy in a wee while. You've got to be positive.
That 39 sounds great until you know you're paying £7 a pint.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're paying £5 in Leith.
That's true.
Get a carry out.
And that £7 a pint is in Dublin, so the Dublin prices would be somewhere between Edinburgh and London's, I would imagine.
Yeah, I can get a pint cheaper in the middle of London than I can in the middle of Edinburgh.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was really surprised. £3.5 quid for a pint of Guinness. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it was £5 quid.
I think Wetherspoons have got serious competition down in the south of England, whereas where's the serious competition around here?
This wasn't a Wetherspoons.
That's what I mean. But they have competition down there. I'd never seen any competition to Wetherspoon in Edinburgh. Have you?
No.
I've seen one there was one in Union Street in Glasgow. I remember jumping off a bus on Union Street in Glasgow and thinking, oh, that's a Wetherspoons. I'll nip in there for a pint. And I went in, and everything looked exactly the same. And even the menu was all the same fonts and everything. And yes. And then there was just something gave it away. Oh, they didn't have those beers. What's that big Green King beers? I was looking for their cheap bitter. Why haven't you got it? Oh, it's not a Wetherspoons. Same prices.
I find the bevy in Glasgow's cheaper than Edinburgh as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, considerably.
Now that we've discussed the really important point of the price of beer, we'll move on to the fifth, which affects us in Scotland. The SNP will win a landslide in Scotland in May. Johnson will still refuse a referendum. He will even refuse discussion on any increased devolved power and be backed by Labour at Westminster. An intensely volatile situation will develop quite quickly. It may be a very tense summer. Scottish demands will not go away, and the SNP might have to grant that what Westminster will seek to describe as an illegal referendum to keep the lid on stresses.
I think you could be right there. It is possible that we could come to that by... Look, to some extent, it depends on COVID. Did you notice yesterday that AUOB have published their summer season, their marching season? So that starts in April, and there's a big one in Glasgow scheduled for the first week in May. Now, if these go ahead, and there is no, I think the Glasgow one is before the May election. It's intended as an election campaign.
That won't go ahead.
I don't think it will. So it's all about COVID. What will that keep the lid on what could be a rather volatile election if there's all these people that are gagging to go marching? What are they going to do? If they don't get a referendum,
have a march on Zoom.
Yeah, well, but will Nicola decide to go for a what is called an illegal referendum?
I think she'd be daft. It'd just give the government if she did that, they'd probably declare that the Parliament, they'd probably suspend the Scottish Parliament. You're talking about a bunch of right-wing thugs and a bunch of right-wing thick people that are running the government. Yeah, I mean, just look at the front bench. Some of them,
If they made any moves to shut the Scottish Parliament, Scotland would take to the streets. That's the first thing.
I agree.
That would be too far.
Yeah.
If they ignored the results of any referendum, I don't think it would cause that much of a stushy, because there are political moves that can be made. But if they try to overtly disembowel the Holyrood, there'll be trouble. So they won't do it that way.
The Parliament's going anyway with the internal bill. That's robbing it of the thing, and eventually
but you ask anybody in the street, are we losing powers from Holyrood, and they'll look at you like you've got three heads. It's just anoraks like us.
Yeah, they believe the stories that are being told by the tabloid press. 112 extra powers came back from Europe.
Yeah. So it would have to be something they could see, touch, feel, and smell that got the whole of the nation on its feet. And I can't see even Boris Johnson's government being that stupid. Maybe that's wishful thinking on my part.
But it's nasty they are. I can see they start taking powers, because I think it's the next one we're coming under. It just jumps into the six, and it's the NHS. The NHS is going to be under great stress and all that. So for want of unity, even though you've been looking after 100 years, NHS up here has been the Scottish NHS, they'll take the lot over. Unity, British and all that, and they'll all go out there and they'll all shove their rear ends up
I don't really agree with you, Phil. I think what they've done to the NHS in England and what they've started to do to the NHS in Scotland, I think instead of talking about things like, dead cat on the table, it's boiling the frog strategy. They don't actually, they're not going to shut the Holyrood Parliament. They're not going to suddenly nationalise the NHS. They haven't suddenly nationalised the whole NHS in England. They do it bit by bit so the public don't notice.
Oh, yeah, well, they started, I mean, we can blame the Tories, but this did start with, and this was enabled, and the wedge went in under Labour, and it's been partial all the way through, taking bits out, stealing bits, basically stripping it down to a skeleton. That's what they're intent to do, and then the skeleton's going to collapse, because it's got no muscles.
Well, I think the most likely thing is they'll do something without foreseeing the consequences in Scotland. They'll do something in England, and it might well be part of the internal market bill. where they'll decide something. Scotland will decide differently or will already be in a different position. And they won't have looked at the consequences of their decision for England. It will rebound on them because Scotland won't like it.
I think you're right that there are unintended consequences coming down the line, especially with COVID and Brexit. We're already seeing that, the possibility that Northern Ireland trucks might start avoiding England.
Well, I think having moved on now to the sixth NHS point that Murphy's making, nobody's thinking about the privatisation of the NHS in England affecting the NHS in Scotland. And that is sacred ground in Scotland, even more so than England. If they do something to the NHS in England that has a consequence that leads to something that looks anything like privatisation in Scotland, they've got a problem on their hands at that point.
Okay, but I think I can still return. There's a case for what I've just said, and I mean, what he says, what Richard Murphy says here, Labour will be left floundering, triangulating as ever. You know, this is the trouble. We've got Keir Starmer, who is not. I mean, what was he described as? A minister in Boris's government without portfolio. There is no serious opposition down there.
I watched Frankie Boyle last night and he described them as an unpainted fence post.
Yep, that's
an unpainted fence post.
He
establishment stooge. I mean, where did he come from? I mean, where's his political background? I mean, he does things like make sure Assange, that's his background. Assange is still locked up and all sorts of things when he was DPP. And he's a SIR. What is a knight in the realm that was a tool of the Tory government doing as a Labour leader? That's
well, look, I mean,
I'm puzzling.
This we've got to the point where this is like rewinding to the preamble at the start and what the prediction is. I cannot, you know, he's suggesting that a new political sentiment around a revived commitment to public service is entirely possible. Is it? I cannot predict how that will happen. No, neither can I.
You're not going down the list here, Stuart, are you?
Yes, I am. I'm in the NHS.
All right, sorry. I thought we'd moved.
No, I'm still in the NHS. I cannot predict how that will happen. I think that a desire to support the NHS, care and education will underpin it when the essential nature of all three. The demand from the right that the NHS must be broken up will be becoming very strong, but the Labour will be left floundering.
And that's why what this prediction is saying won't work. Because there'll be no party to carry the banner.
Exactly. But Keir Starmer leading that supine, lying on the floor Labour Party. What about the unions? They seem to have disappeared.
Well, they have disappeared because they've had all their teeth pulled.
Oh, not according to tabloid press for the last 10 years. They're always bossing the Labour Party around in councils and here in Scotland.
The union. It'll be interesting to see the result of this meeting today.
What meeting?
With the teaching unions are having a wee get together, and one of them wants to walk out the door because of the risk from COVID.
Quite right.
It'll be interesting to see what the outcome of that is. And Starmer's will not be able to support that.
I mean,
said that, nor will the SNP.
But I've just suddenly forgotten that one of the institutional opposition to Scottish independence has been the trade unions in Scotland.
Yeah.
How long can that stand?
No, the Scottish Trade Union Conference voted in favour of a referendum.
That was at the last time round, but we've still got these officials and the GMB, etc., totally against it.
Because they're Labour men, and they follow the Labour Party line. At
the moment now, because I think the SNP links with the trade unions are growing. They have a trade union section, and no, I can see it's like the Labour Party members. I mean, they reckon at least 40% of Labour voters voted for independence. I should imagine it's a lot higher now. I'd say, and I say you're well into double figures in the Labour Party, actual members that voted or are going to vote for independence. So, you know, it's growing.
So the seventh issue. Richard seems to think that climate change will become a big issue this year.
I think he's a bit muddled there. I mean, well, certainly COP26 is happening in Glasgow, but not till November. But it will, and that the whole world, that's attention will be on us. Now, I don't think climate change is the biggest issue that's facing the world. But I think the fact that the conference is happening now, or next November, in Glasgow, makes it a very unpredictable factor in trying to predict what will happen by November next year. Other things, nothing to do with the climate, to be honest.
My problem with this one is that if he's right about everything else, people are going to be more worried about their jobs, money in their pocket, and
That's
their
the way
health.
I see it. They're not going to think long term.
As individuals, climate change is not going to be top of their list.
Yeah.
Possibly as governments, it should be, but it's not immediate enough.
You need to suffer with it.
Yeah, it's not immediate enough.
Tsunami hit your country, earthquakes, or things that have never happened before, like typhoons belting down. You need to have something to actually wake people up, because people are just, well, we've been doing it forever, just trotting around consuming the planet.
Well, that's what Richard says. His final piece in this section is, I expect flooding. Well, that is a big issue in parts of England.
Yeah, it is, to the people that get flooded.
But if you don't get flooded, they don't care.
Well, they shouldn't have built on floodplains, should they? They built on floodplains. That's the places.
I know. Don't get me started.
Not just in England.
Oh, I know. There's some places that haven't, and it's just what's happened. But I mean, look, they were trying to do it at Murrayfield, right in a floodplain. I want to build that. You can't.
Yeah, I know.
They've done it along the water release. You go.
No, I think we're kind of agreed. It says from where I am, it says likely to be COP26 and the conference taking place in the environment of COVID or post-COVID, and the economy that's going to be possibly, explosive.
Yeah.
The only influence I think climate change will have is it'll be a flag-waving exercise for the government of Westminster. They'll make promises in November that they won't keep.
Yeah, but won't we have
December.
Tens of thousands of climate
protesters,
anarchists turning up? It'll be like it was, 2005, was it, when we had the riots in the streets of Edinburgh and out by Glen Eagles?
Oh, for the banking one.
The G7 or G whatever it was when we had it. But
the G20.
I think it will. I think there'll be anarchists coming from and climate change people coming from all over the world to Scotland by the autumn.
That's if we're not still in lockdown.
Oh, they'll still come.
Well, is Greenpeace going to ferry them?
I don't know.
We need to keep an eye on the time, guys.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
His eighth point is the point really that you've already made, Stuart, that the media are already looking to blame the NHS, teachers, care workers, the unemployed.
Yeah. Everybody else it's all their fault, not the politicians.
And it's those poor politicians that are going to sit and have to work really hard to line their pockets over the next 4 years until we get an election.
And then the ninth one is he gets a bit optimistic here. I quite like his little phrase here. He says, although this will be the year of the delivery ban, it will, that's this year or last year now, isn't it? Because he wrote this last year. It will also be a year of new and local business as people consciously seek to support their communities.
Huh?
Yes and no. Out of adversity, new businesses do crop up. There are an awful lot of delivery businesses, but honestly, they're zero-sum temporary jobs, aren't they?
I would like to agree with them about that, but I'm not sure I do.
They're not new businesses. They're a replacement. New implies that there's something there already, but they're all dead and bankrupt. Walk up the walk and see all the shops. So they're not new. They're just replacement, you know?
I think what he's hoping for is that local communities will support local businesses, to put it in a nutshell. But it's too easy just to use Amazon.
Well, I was going to say, unfortunately, it's the big tech companies that have done well out of this pandemic.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Facebook just announced all their figures for Christmas and New Year. Enormous, I mean, to some extent, it's double the business they've done.
It's nothing but adverts. It's half adverts now. Adverts,
yeah.
nothing but adverts you're going through. And keep repeating the same post. There's actually really not a lot of point in looking at it. You could look at it once a week and do it. I mean, I don't know why people want adverts when so many people are going off it. It's crap.
I mean,
I think we need to come to the 10th one before we run out of time, you know?
Yeah.
And this is, in a sense, he returns to the argument that we've already discussed, but he also touches on the big argument that I've been pushing, and I get accused of being a conspiracy theorist. Disruption, the word is in there, disruption. Disruption is apparently the mantra of all the people behind the Boris government. The UKIPers, the Aaron Banks, Nigel Farage, back to Steve Bannon, back to the Koch brothers in America. All these people that supported Trump and supported Boris Johnson. Disruption is their philosophy.
Yeah, but Stuart, it doesn't work. If you're just a disruptor, you have to disrupt only what you want to, or the workers walk out. The people who really generate the wealth, if they get involved in the disruption and you can't control them, it doesn't work. It just becomes money making money,
yeah, but Big Bug,
which is unsustainable.
I mean, you're not arguing against me, you're arguing against a philosophy that's clearly been working for them for the last few years.
Well, no, I'm not. I mean,
they've been disrupting in America. They've been disrupting successfully here.
But the point of it is to make them money.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't get their no deal.
They're coining it.
They didn't get their no deal. All these people that bet against the pound.
Altogether, Norrie. That's narrowing it down to just the difference between no deal and they've done very well so far.
Well, I love this idea that you seem to have, that a bunch of cutthroat pirates who will go about slaughtering whole societies for profit sit down round a table to conspire against those societies.
That sounds like Jacob Rees-Mogany's family, doesn't it?
No, it's a ridiculous idea. They're just greedy bastards taking every opportunity they can get. It's not conspiracy. They'll scratch each other's backs until they get through to the heart, which they'll rip out and eat if it suits them.
Same old, same old. They've been doing it for millennia.
It's why nobody ever got to be king of the world, even though Boris may think so. Because there's always one of his own kind.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there. The school playground and all the different gangs in a city that doesn't have a strong government. That's what the world has looked like at the moment. You know,
and people will take the Koch brothers' money and do what they think's right, not what the Koch brothers want.
Well, we can end this show without disagreeing. That's a shame. My headline's going to be rubbish.
No, we agree to disagree, or we disagree to agree. How about that one? Yeah, make it up yourself.
I think possibly what I do agree with him most about in this is that COVID is not going to go away soon.
Oh, no.
I think we'll have it for most of 21 and possibly into 22.
Well, I would agree with that on a personal anecdotal level that I've now been, as everybody has, but I now wash my hands without even thinking about it. My shopping that I bring in from the supermarket, that when I first thought was too much work to wash it all down, I don't even think about it now. I put it aside and then I wipe it all down before I use it. Because after all, if I'm going to wash my hands after I've been out, what's the point picking up all the shopping that's been polluted in the supermarket without wiping it all down?
You're badly in need of a servant, Stuart.
Oh yes, I've always thought I was entitled to a slave. I should have been born during the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire.
I should give Richard Murphy his due, having gone through all this and criticised them not a small amount. He is magnanimous enough to admit in the last line, and of course, I could be completely wrong. So I think you'd be a very brave man if you were going to bet your house on any predictions for next year.
But it's been an interesting exercise today. I'm glad we picked on it.
Yeah,
we had a go at it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Phil, anything to finish with?
Just a bit. If anybody's got it, go online. It's free. And Stewart has sent it up, and it's Marina Hyde's autopsy on Boris. It's really, really good because she doesn't miss you and hit the wall, right? And
this is in The Guardian.
Oh,
it is. I hadn't noticed that when he stands there at the podium and he starts to talk, and he talks about all the victims, the dead and the sick and all the injured, but it's always him that's the victim. I don't like to have to do this, and I must admit that I'm going to be controversial here. There's echoes of Nicola Sturgeon at the podium saying, "Oh, I hate to have to do this."
Yeah, but somehow you believe her.
Well, yes.
Yeah,
it struck me as well, Stuart. When I read it, I thought, Nicola does that, but somehow it seems sincere. Because maybe she just does Sincerity better.
Whoa.
Well, a corpse with that written on it would be more sincere than alive Boris. You know what I mean? I mean, sorry, there's nothing sincere about Boris at all.
I think we're going to have to call it a day at that, guys. We're kind of running tight to time.
Johnson.
I'd like to thank Charlie and Phil for being with us. And Stuart, thank you, Stuart.
Yeah, cheerio.
And we'll catch you all. I'm Norrie, Stuart, I should say. And we'll catch you all on Sunday, where Jimmy hopefully will be with us. Whether he'll be happy or not depends on the football.
Well,
cheers for now.
If the weather's fine.
Thanks for listening.